The August one's not going to be this large, I guarantee you. There's not going to be any of these suckers. 2 of those, like, back-to-back was a little rough, but, you know, now there's not going to be any of those for, like, a couple months, I think. You know, legally speaking, this one isn't as thick as this one. It's morphin' time!
I wanna take you for a ride. I wanna take you for a ride.
Hello, this is Soundout here, and on today's video, we're talking about every comic book collected edition I picked up in August of 2025. Big, small, and everywhere in between, different publishers, lots of Marvel, but we're going to have a good time. So if you enjoy this type of video, be sure to hit the like button, hit subscribe and the notification bell so you don't miss out on future uploads, and it lets me know that you enjoy these and want to see more of them. Let's get to the August comic haul, because there's some really interesting stuff that I really want to talk about. Okay, so as usual, we're starting with manga, except this isn't a manga, this is a light novel, but it's based on a manga. This is One Piece novel Heroines Volume 2. This is a second collection of short stories involving the heroines of One Piece. This first collection is pretty good. I was just started to read it because I've been kind of backlogged on my novels. If you can imagine, I end up reading more comics in a day than novels, but I do like to read my novels. So these stories are written by Jun Esaka, and these are been pretty good. So the first volume was Nami, Robin, Vivi, and Perona. The second volume is Boa Hancock, Tashigi, Reiju, and Uta, with extra stories of Nami and Robin. So there is, once again, 4 chapters and then a bonus chapter. And these each have like illustrations for them, and they're kind of fun. They're neat. The first volume I thought was pretty solid. It's got kind of like, it's not like earth-shattering revelations, but it did sort of start to connect some things. Like the Robin chapter I thought was great because it took place during her time, during the time skip, which we didn't have like a ton of details on, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, it's pretty nice. There will be more One Piece light novels. I'm glad they're translating and publishing these because they're fun to have these additional works in the One Piece library, and I'm glad that we got some more. And I'm looking forward to the Laws story novel, which is the next one coming out. So pretty awesome. And the other manga I picked up was Mobile Suit Gundam Origin MSD Kukuru's Doan's Island Volume 5. Last time I got to say that title in a video. This is the final volume of Doan's Island. This was published by Kodansha in a hardcover. This is not the series I expected it to be at all. So for context, we've had, in previous comic hauls, volumes 1 to 4. Actually, all these came out pretty quick. They basically came out once every other month, which for a series that's already wrapped, I love that pace. I love that scheduling. I thought about, I'll read them as they come out because they're coming out so quick. But I thought, okay, well, they're coming out that quick. I'll just read them all when I got them all. So I did. I binged through the whole series over a couple days. It was, I was imagining with the title Kukuru's Doan's Island, which is the name of an episode, name of a movie, that this would be, about Kukuru's Doan and his island. It's not at all. This is actually about, because Doan is a deserter from the Zeon army, this is actually about, like, his platoon that he left behind and the people he knew, and, like, what were they up to, and it briefly touches on the island, and it shows why he defected, which I thought was actually pretty nice, because we heard about why he defected, but it actually showing it. And then it also talks about like what happened to the people that he left behind, and also what did they know about the fate of Doan ultimately. And so it was kind of cool from that perspective. But I did sort of expect it to be a bit of a character study of Doan, but it was sort of a character study of Doan by the people he knew more so than himself. But yeah, if I'd known that going in, I probably would have been a little bit more into it, because I feel like I went into it, I was like, when is Doan showing up, because he's not a main character in this. So now I've warned you all, but still pretty solid series for that if you're interested in more expansion on Kukuru's Doan as a character, but just not as like Doan himself, but like the people around him. So when I get to the comics that are not published by Marvel and DC, sometimes it's a little bit lighter of a segment, and I do really like comics from Dark Horse, from Boom, from IDW, from independent stuff, Image Comics, all that. I do like that. A lot of my independent comics I buy in singles monthly, and I don't always rebuy them in trade, at least right away. Sometimes I'll wait for like a larger collection. So this segment's a little bit lighter, but I do want you guys to know there's a lot of great comics outside of the big two that I don't talk about as much on these, because this is focused on collections, whereas I mostly do those in singles because it does help those creators directly, more so than waiting for the trades. But, you know, trades help. Anyways, that was a long preamble to I got another Power Rangers hardcover. I kind of picked these up. I used to buy these like immediately when they dropped because the year one hardcover like sold out super quick and was insanely hard to get. Now I kind of wait a little bit, just kind of fit it into the budget. So Power Rangers Recharge Deluxe Edition, fit it into the budget. So this is the first volume of the Melissa Flores run on the team. What was cool about Melissa Flores writing for Power Rangers, and she still does, is that she used to work on Power Rangers as a producer, and then she went into comic book writing. And so she wrote on this series, the Mighty Morphin series, to wrap out the original Mighty Morphin comic. Now she's been doing Power Rangers Prime, which has been really interesting because it's not adapting any of the shows directly. So you're probably wondering, well, what's in this hardcover? Because, yeah, it's not necessarily like... I do wish they did have some kind of volume number system. But this is going to be Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 101 to 110, Power Rangers Unlimited The Coinless, and Power Rangers Unlimited Hyperforce, plus a new story. And so this is going to be the collection following Mighty Morphin / Power Rangers Book 3. They're pumping these out pretty quick. So the last volume of this, which is Darkest Hour, it's going to be coming really, really soon. And there's also a new collection for Power Rangers Pink that came out. So once I get those two, I might do an updated like reading guide video on the Boom Power Rangers because we will have at least the entirety of the main series collected. I'm still hoping some of the side stuff like Power Rangers Universe gets collected because it would be nice to have everything in deluxe hardcover. But for now, we do have at least all the way through the main series, like I said. So this is kind of like the first half of the last major arc. This Hyperforce issue was really cool because it wasn't just, Melissa Flores did write for a lot of this, but these one-shots had some other creative teams. Megan Camarena, who played Hyperforce Pink, wrote the Hyperforce comic. For those that don't know Hyperforce, because that's kind of sort of lost internet lore at this point, Hyperforce was an official tabletop RPG live series that is officially a Power Rangers team and is officially Power Rangers canon. This was their first full adaptation into comics. They had been featured in the Shattered Grid event, and their show had a crossover in it, but this was the first time that they were part of this, and they become major players in the Darkest Hour event, which is really, really fun. It was kind of cool to get those characters explored again, and that issue kind of picks up from where their series left off, which is nice. There also is, like I mentioned, a bonus new story, this one by Roberto Menendez and Sebastian Perez. So it's an extra additional story. It's like a little 10-page bonus. And then, like always, there's just, a ton of variant covers, and they put all of them in here in full-page spread, which I like. These hardcovers essentially come with a free art book. Maybe not free art book because of the cover price, but there is so many covers, and instead of having, like, collages of covers, you get, like, full-size covers, which I think is awesome. And then there is character designs for a lot of the new character designs that popped up, some returning, some new, and some new characters in new forms. So pretty cool. It's a fun volume, and it is going to lead right into the big finale volume, which we'll probably talk about in the near future. All right, switching over to DC, we got the newest Green Lantern trade paperback, Civil Core. So the previous one, I think we just looked at the previous one in the previous haul, didn't we? These have been coming out kind of quick because they've been kind of catching up on the Green Lantern. This one is only 3 issues, but it's got 5 issues in total. So we have 16 to 18 of the main series, Green Lantern Civil Core and Green Lantern Fractured Spectrum. So these are done in reading order, which I really appreciate. You can see Sinestro's gone all Red Lantern on there. What could be going on? So this run's been great. It's been really picking up post Absolute Power. For me, personally, Civil Core Special is where this series really takes off. I thought it'd been good so far, but this is, reading the Civil Core Special was when I was like, okay, I need to own this in trades, not just be reading it on DC Universe. And so basically it starts with the Civil Core Special, and then it goes down into the Fractured Spectrum Special, which is how it wraps out at the end. And then all of that leads into the next volume. So for Volume 5 will be Green Lantern Volume 5. We'll be continuing from here, and then Green Lantern Corps Volume 1. So this is where kind of the new Green Lantern Corps series comes and spins out of. So yeah, Volume 4, it is definitely an important volume. I think I'd mentioned that Volume 3 felt almost like just kind of filler. It was a volume to get everything done before Civil Core. Because Civil Core into Green Lantern Corps, that's been great so far, and really been enjoying it. And this is kind of the start of the really great stuff. The other volumes are good for setup, but this is where it really starts picking up. All right, speaking of comics, that was a weird transition. The Terrifics Complete Collection. This is a series that I sort of missed out on when it first came out because this was a Dark Knight's Metal spin out. They spun out a bunch of new comics out of Dark Knight's Metal. Some of them were existing characters, some of them are brand new characters. The whole thing was called New Age of Heroes. Didn't quite take off the way they wanted it to. But the one that had the longest legacy and the best run was the Terrifics. And I had I was just in a DC burnout when this came out, and so I did not read this when it initially came out. Of course, it's got my boy Mr. Terrific, who's one of my favorite DC characters, so it's like, well, why wasn't I reading this? It's got Phantom Girl. This isn't the Phantom Girl from Legion of Superheroes, but an ancestor of hers, Metamorpho, and Plastic Man. And if you can kind of imagine with these two being in Superman, this was probably why this series got reprinted, which, hey, I'll take it because I've been reading it, and it is absolutely terrific. The title is appropriate. Jeff Lemire and Jin Yu Lang do a lot of the writing on this. Steve Zgoga and Doc Shaner on art. This series, I'm about halfway through this volume so far. It is so good. I really highly recommend this. It is a bit of a take on the Fantastic Four. Like, you got your smart guy, your strong guy, your stretchy guy, your invisible youngster. It kind of mixes it up a little bit, right? It's not exactly like the Fantastic Four, but it has got a Fantastic Four vibe to it. They are exploring in space. They get trapped within the dark multiverse and get forced to be together, basically, by a permanent bond. And then they have to kind of work with that. And it's really cool seeing them come together as a team, because Mr. Terrific's a bit of a loner. They have multiversal adventure shenanigans. Reading it does remind me of Fantastic Four, where they're kind of, exploring and adventuring while fighting supervillains. And that definitely was intentional. You can definitely tell from the vibe. But this is great getting it all in one go like this. Big old paperback. So this has all 30 issues plus the annual, which is really awesome. I love the spine design, because you got like kind of a Bohemian Rhapsody sort of thing with the heads there, but they're in a T shape, right? The Terrifics Complete Collection. This is essentially, it's a compendium. It's $60, priced like the compendiums are, and it's a complete series. It may be one of those things you want to check out, like, digitally first, but I do highly recommend it. I've been enjoying the heck out of it. I can just kind of read through this. This is like really fun superhero comics with a lot of good character depth as well, for everybody involved. And it's kind of fun too, because Mr. Terrific, Metamorpho, and Plastic Man all have, existing backstories and supporting casts that they can build on. But Phantom Girl is a new character, even though she is based on Phantom Girl from Legion of Superheroes, she is a new character in this time period. And so it's kind of fun to see, like, a lot of the parallels there. So really, really recommend this series. Don't worry about having read Dark Knight's Metal ahead of time. They tell you everything you need to know, like, pretty much in the first issue. But if you like Mr. Terrific, if you like Plastic Man, you like Metamorpho, Phantom Girl, all these characters, really great. Just a great series overall. All right, so for DC Finest, I only got one this month because my Hawkman hasn't shipped yet. Blue Beetle challenges the Red Knight. This is one of the most interesting DC Finest collections for a couple reasons. First of all, with a lot of the DC Finest we've seen so far, they've been existing material that's been reprinted before, just in a new form, packaged together in chronological order. With this volume, most of this has never been reprinted before in print form, and that is pretty incredible. The other thing to notice is that it has a really tiny page count. And I say really tiny because it's not tiny, it's still a thick trade, but compared to the average 600-page beast from DC Finest, it does look a little bit thin, right? And this is, I know people have been like, why couldn't they put more in it? But I actually have a really great explanation. And it's not official, but it's my guess. It is the same cover price. It's still $40, just like, all the DC Finest are. So I do appreciate that consistency. It's kind of like when you get a Batman volume that's almost 700 pages for $40, and then you get a Blue Beetle that's like 300 for $40. It's like, okay, that's where it sometimes balances out. But let's talk about what's included, because I actually, because it was short, I read through this whole thing this week, so it's all super fresh. I kind of wanted to explain this one, because I am kind of the Blue Beetle guy in my circles of friends. I do know my Blue Beetle. I had not read most of this before, but you can see there's two Blue Beetles on the spine. We got Dan Garrett and we got Ted Kord. Now, the most famous Blue Beetle at this point is Jaime Reyes. He, of course, was the one in the movie. Ted Kord's pretty famous for being in the Justice League International and having a lot of iconic storylines. Dan Garrett's not so much iconic or as well known, and there's a reason for that, which I'll talk about in a moment. So you can see this is stuff published from 1964 to 1981, but there was a massive gap between 69 and 81, and that is because Charlton Comics is what published these. Yes, you can see the original Charlton stories back in print for the first time ever. So, like I said, let's go through this together. I just want to kind of give an explainer guide. So we got your table of contents here. So basically what we're looking at is we got like, essentially you can break this thing up into 5-issue chunks. So issues 1 to 5 of Blue Beetle from 1964. They call it Blue Beetle Volume 1. That is not exactly accurate. Blue Beetle Dan Garrett did exist in the 1940s under Fox Comics. Charlton got the publishing rights and then started publishing. So publishing rights wise, DC bought Charlton Comics in the 80s and merged some of their characters into the DC universe, like Blue Beetle, The Question, Captain Atom, and a few others. So this would be Volume 1 of Charlton's Dan Garrett Blue Beetle, but it's not Volume 1 overall. So that's the first thing, but this is the 5 issues, and then it jumps from issue 5 to issue 50. The reason for this is because Charlton Comics was changing titles on books. Back in the days of postage, if you had a new title, it required a new postal recognition, and at that point, you would have to spend more money. So Charlton always never had a lot of money, so what they would do is they're like, okay, this series didn't work out, so issue 6 of this would become a completely different title. And then eventually like, oh, let's try Blue Beetle again, and so they brought it back with issue 50, and that goes 50 to 54, so that's like 5 more issues. And then that pretty much does it for Dan Garrett. Then they introduced Ted Kord as backup stories in Captain Atom 83 to 86, which this collection only contains those backup stories of Blue Beetle, not the Captain Atom parts. Then you have a new Blue Beetle series from 1967, which only lasted 5 issues before getting canceled. There was a 6-issue partially finished. That's not included here. It was in a Steve Ditko collection. Because these were done by Steve Ditko, they have been reprinted before, but they're included here. They do not contain the Question backup stories, just the Blue Beetle stories. And then there is Charlton Bullseye #1, which is a team up between the Question and Blue Beetle during a time where Charlton was trying to get superheroes back in the early 80s before ultimately selling to DC. So the reason why they structured this volume to be so small, even though there's more Blue Beetle, because Ted Kord had a series in the 1980s that ran about 24 issues, you could have put some of that in here. This, I think, is, first of all, because most of this hasn't been reprinted before, there's probably some of the cost going into scanning and restoration. And then the second thing is I think that because this is all the Charlton stuff pre-DC buyout, they wanted to keep it as its own volume. So that way the next volume would be your post-crisis Blue Beetle. He's integrated in the DC universe, and it's a different read. That way there's not having to be a bunch of like jumps where he's suddenly in a different universe. This reads a lot better being standalone. They couldn't collect anything earlier because that's under Fox Comics. They couldn't collect anything later because that's now under DC. This is just the Charlton era of Blue Beetle in the Silver Age. So that's pretty great. What's not pretty great is these comics. The first half of these book is rough. The Dan Garrett side of it, some have described it as comedic. I find it to not be amazing. First of all, there's a ton of text. This is just a recap. This is a synopsis, of this entire issue. It's kind of weird they included that. Dan Garrett's Blue Beetle has literally every superpower, just telepathic, can blow stuff up, invulnerable, can fly, doesn't matter what it is. He's got all the powers. He fights stereotypical racist caricatures of villains. There's like a moment in here where Dan Garrett's like, Chinese people with guns, they must be communists. I mean, they ended up being communists, but it's kind of a little bit of a presumption, Mr. Dan Garrett. Also, part of this, too, is that in the previous issue, he made sure a fighter pilot got out of the jet with his telepathic powers before blowing it up. But with the Chinese communists, he just murders all of them without any remorse or anything said about it. Yeah, it's kind of one of those, like, wow, mid-1960s racism hits you pretty hard. And credit to DC for publishing it, first of all, for historical purposes. Also credit for putting one of those little disclaimers. You know, the little, hey, this has racism in it. When, that was bad then and it's bad now, but back then people weren't aware of it. We're just doing this for historical reference. Appreciate that little tagline because it's good to remember how far we've come and also how far we still have to go. So the 10 issues of Dan Garrett Blue Beetle, luckily not as, there's a green person in some of these. They got less racist after the first couple, which was nice. But, it's not amazing because he just has every superpower and it kind of just has no drama. It's like he's going to get out of anything, no problem. So then we finally get to the Ted Kord part of it. And I gotta tell you, sometimes it just takes the right creator and sometimes the right character to just spark life in things. Steve Ditko, who is, of course, famous for working on Spider-Man, co-creating Spider-Man and such. He also worked at Charlton. Ted Kord Blue Beetle, personality, style, he has cool tech gadgets, no superpowers, and he shows up and he's fun, he's interesting, and I'm already hooked, like immediately. And I have read the 1967 Blue Beetle series before, which you can see here. I have read this before. It's great. This is some of Steve Ditko's best early work, honestly, and I really, really enjoyed it. So I gotta say that if you're looking to get this volume, and you are kind of curious about the other Blue Beetles, I will say the first half is a bit of a slog, but the Steve Ditko half of this volume and then the Charlton Bullseye special at the end with him in the question, all great stuff. I'm really, really happy that DC Finest exists for stuff like this, and hopefully we get more Blue Beetle collections, because I would love to see Ted Kord's series collected into at least a couple of those. So looking forward to the future, and that's my full review on DC Finest Blue Beetle. So I had just talked about in my recent Omnibus video, the creator-focused versus character-focused one, which a lot of people watched. Thank you all for tuning into that. Really, really good attention on that one. I was talking about how, the difference between what, creator-owned and character-focused, and like what causes the difference, what's the issues back and forth. One of the things I did mention is that for me in Wonder Woman, I want specific creators, and so I do get when people are like, I just want what that one creator did. Greg Rucka is one of them. I have, my Wonder Woman Omnibus collection is limited at the moment. I have the Gail Simone volume. I have 2 of the 3 George Perez volumes, and then Greg Rucka. Because I am a little pickier. I'm not sure if I'm going to get the Phil Jimenez one. I'm not sure. I know they're doing John Byrne. I don't usually like John Byrne. I think John Byrne art-wise I like. John Byrne writing-wise. So I'm, picky and choosy when it comes to Wonder Woman, because I feel like a lot, and I do mean a lot, sadly, a lot of writers don't get the character. But anyways, point being, this is the Greg Rucka. Now, this is not the only omnibus they could do a Greg Rucka, because this is just Greg Rucka's run from the 2000s, which has a lot of storylines in it. But this is interesting. They list them alphabetically here. Action Comics 829, Adventure Superman 642. Those are crossover issues with the Wonder Woman series. So I'm glad those are included, because past omnibuses, we were talking about the Grant Morrison Batman omnibuses, they leave out other parts of a crossover. So there are some other writers in here that did Action Comics Adventure Superman, but they crossed over with Wonder Woman, so that was good. Blackest Night Wonder Woman 1-3, which Rucka wrote, but came like a little bit after all this. Superman 219 was part of that crossover. Flash 219, I think, was also part of that crossover. Wonder Woman 195-226, and Wonder Woman the Hecate. So it's a pretty condensed pre-Flashpoint Greg Rucka volume, because Greg Rucka during, was it Rebirth? Yeah, Greg Rucka during Rebirth did Wonder Woman. So I think they initially had announced this, by the way, I love the spine with the blindfold and everything. They had initially announced this as Wonder Woman by Greg Rucka Omnibus Volume 1. And so I thought, okay, cool, Volume 1 will be the pre-Flashpoint stuff, Volume 2 would be the Rebirth stuff, but then they, changed it to just say Wonder Woman by Greg Rucka Omnibus. Love this interior artwork as well. So I was kind of like, okay, maybe they're just going to rebrand it, and it's going to be like the Wonder Woman Rebirth Omnibus by Greg Rucka, or they're going to maybe expand out. But you can see here, this one passes the test. You can see Jeff Johns, Gail Simone, and Mark Verheiden as writers, because those are the crossover issues included. So it doesn't take as a it doesn't take the approach of like, let's include everything in Wonder Woman, but it does make sure that you have complete storylines, which I appreciate. Also, something I've never really seen in an Omni before, and correct me if I'm wrong, because many times am. You can see that it starts with Wonder Woman the Hecate, which is like a standalone graphic novel, and then like Wonder Woman 195 is a standalone issue. But you can see Down to Earth is part 1 to 5 is right here between these issues, and you can see that it puts a marker for Down to Earth, puts a marker for Bitter Pills, puts a marker for Stone. So you can see that after you get through Down to Earth, then there's like, Ripples and Leaks are, those storylines. But I like that it has the titles, and it has the issues, and it has the dates they were published. And I like that it has the story arcs listed. That is one of my favorite table of contents pages I've seen in an omnibus. is that it actually breaks it down as like, here's the story arc called Sacrifice, right? And it's got this crossover with other stuff going on, or this, the storyline marathon. I really, really like this. But yeah, you can see that it goes up to about 2006 in the main series and jumps to 2010 just because Rucka did do that Blackest Night series. I don't mind that too much, but that is how this omnibus is structured. I think this is a really solid collection, and I really like the way that it's laid out, and I like the way that it's collected, and I look forward to them doing a second Greg Rucka Wonder Woman omnibus. A lot of people say that Greg Rucka is their favorite Wonder Woman writer, so for me, I actually really like the Gail Simone run the most, so that's me though. But I think that there's a lot of great stuff in this, stuff that ties into Infinite Crisis as that kind of era. But yeah, so it's a pretty solid omnibus, and I'm actually pretty happy with how they laid it out, and I look forward to seeing how the Rebirth version of Greg Rucka's run will be collected, because I think that will be cool to see as well. Alright, let's kick off the Marvel section with the biggest book of the haul, the Star Wars Visions Treasury Edition. It's not the biggest page count-wise, but biggest trim size. For those that have not seen a Treasury Edition before, here's a normal trade paperback size. Yeah, they're gigantic. I'm starting to get really into these. The first one I picked up was the Doom one, the Sanford Green Doom one-shot. And then I got the Darth Maul Black, White, and Red, and now I've got the Star Wars Visions one, and I kind of want to go get the Darth Vader Black, White, and Red, because I really like the artwork on these. So I've read these before, but these Star Wars Visions it's 3 one-shots. This first one that's included, this is actually interesting, they're in reading order. So Takashi Okazaki, who worked on the Ronin short of the Star Wars Visions anthology project, where they got a lot of Japanese animators together to do Star Wars-inspired shorts. The Ronin short was pretty prominent, and so that same art style is brought here. And this first one-shot is a prequel to the Ronin short, kind of giving some context and background on the character, and having, again, gorgeous artwork. Absolutely love this. This is like, I read through this again as soon as I got it, because it's just beautiful. But it kind of explains some of the things in the first short. And then there's the Star Wars Visions #1, which is a sequel to the Ronin short, and kind of goes into some more stuff. And I love that it is done in black and white style, very manga-esque, but then the lightsabers, of course, are in color, which I think is awesome, like the droid lights and such. So it's really, really cool. I do really like these one-shots. I actually wasn't a big fan of the Ronin short from the Visions, but I really like the 2 comics they did. That page there is amazing. That's incredible. So when there's books like these that are very heavily focused on the art, and they offer a Treasury Edition like this, I'm all over it. That's definitely something I like. So then the cool part is the first half is Takashi Okazaki. The second half is Peach Momoko. So in the Darth Vader Black, White, and Red, which I imagine this is included still, Black, White, and Red are usually anthology stories. One of them was done by Peach Momoko. And it's done entirely without dialogue, and it's like some of the most incredible visual work that I've seen in Star Wars comics, and it looked amazing. And so they included that, and then they included the Star Wars Visions Peach Momoko one-shot. Once again, free of dialogue, but yet just beautiful artistic storytelling. I think this is really great. I'm a big Peach Momoko fan, so that was a big indicator. Also, I love the color usage here. It's very minimalist color, but it uses it really effectively and has some really twisted visuals to it, which is awesome. And then in the back, you've got some cool variant covers for these issues, which I think is awesome, and even a sketch gallery. So I think this is pretty good. There will be a standard trade paperback version of this coming out for those that don't want the gigantic Treasury Edition. The Treasury Edition is like $30. They're low on page count, but you're kind of buying it for the size and the artwork. Also love the white spine versus the normal black spine that Star Wars gets, because that lets Visions stand out on its own. I hope there's more of these. I would love to see more of the Visions style brought to comics as well, because I think it's cool to take Star Wars through different artistic lenses. And I do love that, like, the Ronin stuff is very samurai inspired, but the Peach Momoko stuff is a little bit more abstract. But really great collection. Like I said, if you want to get a standard trade version of it, it will come out in standard trade later, but this is a really nice addition for some beautiful artwork. Okay, so I have a couple books I picked up that are older. My comic shop has a used section. They get stuff from time to time I don't have. Like A Year of Marvels. So this was a digital series they did, and it is pretty literal when it says A Year of Marvels. So, like, here's a Spider-Man story in February, and then you get, like, an Ant-Man story set in March. And they're basically just like a bunch of one-shot stories. This is just kind of a neat little anthology project. It's not really anything like groundbreaking or revolutionary. You're probably like, oh, why did you have to get it? Because, first of all, I like the Marvel characters. Second of all, one of the stories involves Rocket Raccoon, so that goes with my Guardians of the Galaxy stuff. And this also contained the Christmas and New Year's specials that weren't in print before. And the Christmas special involves Ghost Rider Robbie Reyes, which this wasn't even included in some other collections of Robbie's comics, which is kind of weird. But it's a really sweet little story of Ghost Rider going after a demonic Santa Claus, who he's like thinks is Krampus. It's crazy. I like it. It's really fun. And then this last story, I gotta say, not my favorite. There's a musical artist that wrote it, who puts himself in the story, and everything revolves around him, and that's fine. It felt a little self-serving, but at least has like kind of a nice message. So it goes through every single month. This was an older trade. It's just it popped up, and I was like, hey, that's the thing that's got that Rocket story and that Ghost Rider story I don't have. So it was a fun little read, but nothing major. One of the major finds, which I was really happy about, was the Storm by Warren Ellis and Terry Dodson trade. So this is the 1996 Storm miniseries. It got a standalone reprint for whatever reason. Marvel used to do a lot more formats. They started going back into more formats now. So this is just straight up the 4-issue miniseries from 1996. This is in that just before Onslaught era of X-Men. It's probably going to get collected in an Epic collection, I would imagine, but you never know. They've left out some other stuff, like I know the Wolverine epics nor the X-Men epics did the Wolverine Gambit miniseries. So I don't know if this is going to get collected, but it also doesn't matter because it's Storm, and I cannot get enough Storm. She's my favorite X-Men character, so obviously need to have it. So now I officially have all the Storm solo comics, because this was the only one I was missing. So collection complete and caught up on. Because Storm still gets solo comics. Yeah, so this is the current Storm comic. I've been reading this in single issues every month. It's Storm. I'm going to support Storm. The current era of X-Men from the Ashes. When it started, I was excited. Coming off Krakoa, I was like, okay, what are we going to do? What new and exciting things are we going to do? And it really has fallen apart for me. I have lost like almost all interest in the From the Ashes era, sadly. I wanted to be into it, but it's just everything feels a little aimless as like X-Men. That being said, Storm is very good, particularly this first volume, which this first volume collects the first 5 issues of Storm. This first arc is incredible. Like this is I not only think is the standout best series of the From the Ashes, but I do think this first volume in particular is one of the best solo Storm stories we've gotten in a while. It is really, really nice to see. Like they really got all the elements of the character. Really enjoyed it. Now, the second volume, issues 6 to 10, it's got a little bit messier, a little bit harder to follow. I'm not sure if that's just a monthly reading basis type thing, but it has not been as strong, sadly. It kind of fell off a little bit, but I still have been enjoying it, but I'm kind of hoping it, post Age of Revelation, because every book's going to go on hiatus for 3 months, it seems. Post Age of Revelation, hope it comes back a little bit stronger. Because it's been good so far. It's been real good, and it is confirmed to get past the 10 issue limit that Marvel seems to keep axing books at 10 issues. So it has gotten past that, and it will keep going. But this first volume in particular, I do highly recommend it. It's very good. All right, so speaking of From the Ashes, here's Phoenix Volume 2, Cosmic Ascent. So do I like this book? That's a good question. I've been reading this one digitally. And it's been all right. I think sending Jean into space to go deal with cosmic stuff has been fun. Marvel hasn't had, until Jonathan Hickman's Imperial recently, Marvel hasn't had any cosmic titles in a while. So having her team up with Nova is great. Almost spoiled it a little bit. She teams up with Rocket Raccoon and Sif, Captain Marvel, and fighting the Black Order and Thanos. And I think it's pretty interesting. Much like the other X-Men books, though, I feel like it had a little bit stronger of a start than it's had ongoing. But I will say at least that I did pick this up because I did want to make sure it's got Rocket and it's got Nova and it goes with my Cosmic collection more than anything. And then it's we'll see about Volume 3. I've been reading it on Marvel Unlimited, so I'm kind of catching it as it comes through. But yeah, I did pick up the first 2 volumes. If the other Cosmic characters stop being a part of it, I'm probably gonna stop picking it up because it's so good. It's just not like amazing. It's just kind of okay. And I think it's probably like from the ashes is that at best the books are just kind of okay. So yeah, it's been kind of rough times with X-Men. Okay, enough about current Marvel. Let's travel to the past with Fantastic Four by Wade and Wieringo Imaginauts. So, quick story. I have been a Fantastic Four reader for a while. I've read a lot of their stuff. A lot of my collection has a bunch of holes. So I have read chunks and pieces of the Wade and Wieringo run, but I haven't read it all, and I don't own all of it. So I was kind of waiting to see if they were going to do like a modern era epic collection of this era, and that seemed likely, and it hasn't really happened. So what Marvel did is they announced this. Obviously, because of the Fantastic Four movie, they had a bunch of publishing initiatives for Fantastic Four. One of them was Wade and Wieringo's Imaginauts arc, which is Fantastic Four 60 to 66, and then Avengers 400, which was kind of a tie into stuff. This was 6 to 66, or 60 to 66. That's like kind of not that bigger than a normal trade. It's only about 8 issues. So it kind of felt like an old trade kind of reprinted, which I think it basically is. And so I was like, okay, they're just kind of doing that to get like the first volume. Like Mark Waid's a big name right now. And let's put out a Fantastic Four volume that people can pick up on, right? It's a solid, great run. Okay, so I was like, okay, that's all they're going to do, right? And then they announced the second one, Unthinkable. And I was like, oh, we're doing a second one? Because this contains 67 to 70 and 500 to 502. Yes, because they stopped the new numbering at 70 and then they went back to the old numbering at 500. So then I was like, okay, so you've announced 2. That's half the run right there. And yes, they have announced a 3 and a 4. They're not numbered. They're not numbered at all, which is slightly annoying. I do like my numbers. They don't have to be on the spine, but I like numbers somewhere. But essentially, they have announced the entirety of the Wade and Wieringo run across 4 trade paperbacks. These do have a $25 cover price, so they're more expensive than your standard trades, but not that much more expensive, because, like, I don't know, what was the price on Phoenix? Phoenix was $16. Storm was $18, even though those have the same number of issues. So anyways, the point being, 25 is not, like, insane. It's not like they're charging $35 for a thick, thin trade. They are a little bit thicker than normal. They don't exactly follow the mapping of the old trades. So I thought, okay, now that they're actually going to do the entire run, will they probably do it in a modern epic later? Yeah, they're probably going to take, like, those 2 and be like, there's your modern epic. But for now, at least, because who knows when they're going to get to that, because they've only been doing classic Fantastic Four, though they're almost done. My point being is that I thought, okay, since they're actually going to do all the volumes and it's going to be complete, that's my way to get a new edition of Wade and Wieringo. But I also do like that I noticed that we have Ben on the first one, Sue on the second one, so I imagine Johnny and Reed will be on 3 and 4. And so, yeah, I was like, okay, if they're actually going to reprint everything, I'm in to actually collect these. It's worth doing. Speaking of Fantastic Four and epics, we got a Fantastic Four epic, The Possession of Franklin Richards. So this is a volume 12 for 1980 to 1981. Fantastic Four 215 to 231, annuals 14 to 16. Because this would be the last volume before the Byrne run starts. So the John Byrne run's pretty famous. I have problems with the way John Byrne depicted Reed and Sue's first meeting. Mostly because he gave them an uncomfortable age gap that didn't exist previously and was a dumb retcon that pretty much everybody agreed was a dumb retcon and got rid of. So basically, this leads us up to the John Byrne run, and another volume into the queue of reading, because I've been also wanting to read them in order, and I've started reading them now because I have enough sequentially to do so. Now, that doesn't stop me from starting other epic lines. Okay, so if you've been following this little saga, I had Kraven's Last Hunt, which I was like, okay, if I'm going to get one Spider-Man epic, Kraven's Last Hunt has Wolverine versus Spider-Man, has Kraven's Last Hunt, and it has the marriage of Peter and MJ. That's a volume to get, right? And then I picked up volume 18, Venom, which was the debut of Venom. Then I decided, like, okay, what volumes are from the Black Costume era, both the symbiote and the Black Costume. And this was the only one they've done, 15, Ghosts of the Past. Which, by the way, epics usually, this is just a side note, I didn't notice this until I was reading the other night. You see how the cover here, and then you look at the spine, and you're like, that's an image of Sue from the cover, right? That's how, like, almost every epic I own is like. But for this one, it kind of did the DC Finest thing where it uses different art for the spine, but I kind of dig that. I really like it. It's a little cleaner. Anyways, this is a little bit older of a volume. I found a copy at Barnes & Noble, so boom, got my Ghosts of the Past. So the volumes I would want of Amazing Spider-Man for the Black Costume Era would be 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 14 and 16 don't exist. They're two famous gaps. 16 is a pretty famous gap that a lot of people are like, when are we going to get 16? And I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of curious now because I've committed myself to Black Costume Saga. Not sure if I'm going to go forward in time to, like volume 19. I don't know if I go backward to like volume 13 because I just really do like this this era here where you got like Hobgoblin running around, you got the black costume stuff and the Craven stuff and Peter and MJ's relationship building and getting married and stuff. This has been great. I've started reading it, as you can see. It's been really solid so far, and I'm enjoying it. I just started to read it. I was like, should I wait for 14 and 16 to exist? Who knows? People have been waiting for 16 for years. So yeah, I'm kind of, with Fantastic Four, I want everything. With Spider-Man, a little pickier. Okay, so Marvel has not been doing oversized hardcovers recently. They used to do them quite frequently. You'd see like 2 trades come out and then an oversized hardcover of like those 12 issues or something like that. They stopped doing them because they've started just pumping out omnibuses. So like, and also because the modern runs keep getting so short that it's like, oh, Moon Knight by Jed MacKay wrapped. Okay, here's the omnibus like 6 months later. So we haven't really seen a deluxe hardcover from Marvel in a while. But yet here we are. With Blood Hunt. So this is interesting. Blood Hunt was a event which involved so many different titles: Avengers, Moon Knight, Doctor Strange. Jed MacKay kind of had to, took this event. It's important to all 3 of those runs that he did. It also was like really big for supernatural characters because Blood Hunt is all about a darkness coming over the planet. And so vampires can exist at all times of the day. They don't have to worry about nighttime cycles. And so it becomes a big threat, and everybody's got to fight vampires. It's great. I absolutely loved this event. I've been waiting because I thought they would do an omnibus with all the tie-in issues, though I've gone back and looked, and there's some like post-series stuff for Blood Hunt. They might have to split it into 2, but they haven't announced a Blood Hunt omnibus yet, though I'm sure it will get one. All the major Marvel events do. Then they announced this, which is the Blood Hunt Red Band edition hardcover. And this is just the 5-issue miniseries plus the free comic book day special. But this is specifically the red band versions. So the way they did this is that when they released Blood Hunt, there was 2 versions. There was one that was kind of standard violence for like a T-rated comic, and there was one that was more violent. You got a little bit more detailed on the gore and such. And so they had those in polybagged bags, and they weren't sold digitally, and you couldn't get them on Marvel Unlimited. So it was a whole thing. Marvel's got a bunch of rules about explicit content versus regular content. So it's kind of complicated, but basically the way I see this is if you want the red band issues for Blood Hunt, that's what this hardcover is for. This is going to be the red band versions. I imagine when we get the omnibus, there's going to be one omnibus that is just the non-red band versions, and that'll include all the tie-ins and stuff. $35 hardcover. I decided to pick it up because I was anticipating. I was like, I think, based on what I know of Marvel and how their patterns work, these red band issues are only going to be in this hardcover. So yeah, picked it up because I was like, yep, completionism, but also it's kind of fun to get the extra blood and gore with the vampire stuff. Okay, speaking of events, I've got a couple event omnibuses, and I'm going to touch on them lightly here. Mostly I'm going to touch on why I bought them. Because I do want to, I kind of teased it in my creator-focused omnibus video that I do want to do a video about omnibuses and omnibus mapping because it's a bit of a mess. So we're not really talking about that in this video because I want to save that for that video. What I do want to talk about is why I bought Judgment Day in the year 2025. So Judgment Day was a crossover between, as it says, Avengers, X-Men, and Eternals. There was a great Eternals run by Kieran Gillen that I thought was fantastic. It was the first time I've read the Eternals and was like, these are interesting. And it was a big event for Avengers and X-Men as well. So the Judgment Day Omnibus contains all of the tie-ins for this event. The story is basically a Celestial comes to judge Earth, and then everybody on the planet Earth has to be judged. And so if you can tell, it's got all these, got like your lead-in, your main miniseries. But then look at this. Immortal X-Men 5-7, X-Men Red 5-7, Death to Mutants 1-3, X-Force 30-33, X-Men 13-14, Wolverine 24, Legion of X 6, Marauders 6, and then you get, Fantastic Four 47-48, Avengers 60, Axe Avengers making Spider-Man 10, Axe X-Men 1, Axe Iron Fist, Axe Star Fox, Captain Marvel 42, Axe Eternals, Axe Judgment Day Omega, and the material from the free Comic Book Day special, and Wolverine 25. So, if you can tell, this omnibus is like 60%, 70% X-Men. So the way I look at it is that I needed to get this because, here we go, the X-Men Krakoa era is starting to be collected in omnibuses. They have been doing it creator-focused, right? Like, oh, here's X-Men by Al Ewing or whatever. So they've been doing that, but now they're starting to do the X-Men Dawn of X Krakoa Age omnibuses. And I want to collect those because I like the Krakoa era a whole lot. It's one of my favorite eras of X-Men, so I'm like, I want to get the Omnis. So I've been trying to map ahead, basically, because what Marvel did is that when they announced the first Krakoa omnibus, people said, wait, where is House of X and Powers of X? House of X, Powers of X is the first story of the Krakoa Age, and it wasn't included in the first omnibus, and the answer from Marvel was because it's an event, and we don't include events in omnibus runs for characters, which is true to some extent. We'll talk about it again in the event omnibus video. And so House of X, Powers of X is getting a reprint of its deluxe hardcover because it is an event, and so that's going to go alongside the Krakoa omnibuses. So what we don't know is, will the Krakoa omnibuses contain the Judgment Day stuff, or is it going to be mapped to skip over it as there is already a Judgment Day omnibus in existence? So I put it to the test, and I was thinking about it. This is mostly X-Men, so I thought should get the Judgment Day omnibus while it exists, because we're not exactly sure how they're dealing with some of the events. But I feel pretty strong about Judgment Day getting skipped over. They may include the Judgment Day issues, but because so much of this already thick book is X-Men, it just says to me that, like, are they going to take up an entire Krakoa omnibus with just Judgment Day, or are they just going to skip around it? And I have a feeling skip around it might be what it is. We'll see if I'm right in 3 to 4 years if the Krakoa omnibuses sell well enough to get to that point. And then the omnibus we teased all the way in the intro, the Fall of the House of X and Rise of the Powers of X. So this is the final Krakoa omnibus, and I think it's going to stay the final Krakoa omnibus. It's funny they're starting with the final instead of starting with the first, but this is because they did not do any deluxe hardcovers for the material in here, and so they opted to do an event omnibus instead. So this is officially considered an event omnibus. Therefore, I don't think they're going to do this again because this is so thick as is. Like, look at this thing. This thing's massive. That's why I kind of made the joke of, like, you know, I didn't realize it was going to be this thick. But basically, what is included is all of this. You have Fall of House of X, Rise of Powers of X, 1 to 5, X-Men 33 to 35, essentially, Resurrection Magneto, Dead X-Men, X-Men Forever, Miss Marvel, Mutant Menace, and Cable, all 4-issue miniseries. You also get Invincible Iron Man 13 through 20, which is most of that run, and then Avengers 12 to 13, because all of this is tied into the Fall of House of X, Rise of the Powers of X, into Krakoa stuff. Unfortunately, it is not mapped correctly. It is mapped like an event omnibus where it puts the 2 miniseries first and then all the tie-ins after. And some of the things that happen in the main 2 miniseries don't make sense without reading the tie-ins because it's one of those events. Also, there was 3 covers on this one, just so everyone knows, because they're like, wait, that's not the cover that's on Amazon. Yeah, there's 2 direct market covers. I picked the David Nakayama one because he draws Emma Frost real pretty. He draws Mystique pretty, and even Destiny's really pretty. And like Hope and Storm and Jean, they all look great. Like, everybody looks great on this one. I thought I liked this one the best out of the 3 options. And I like the cool, like, wraparound. So, that is, I'm going to go into this when we talk about the event omnibuses because this is not a great reading order. You know, the Judgment Day, maybe not so much of a problem. This, not as great. But basically, you know, there's no way, you know, because we've never seen it before, there's no way this exact same contents is going to get reprinted as Krakoa Omnibus Volume 11 in a proper reading order. It's going to just get reprinted as it is. It's just the way Marvel works. I do like the symmetry between the House of X and Powers of X and the Fall and Rise. They look really nice together. They have the same they have the same design because they have the same designer, so they have a lot of the similar like design elements going on, which I think is super cool. So yeah, I mean it's you know, this is not like the best mapped omnibus, but you can always look up a guide online and then just flip back and forth in the book on your own. It just would have been nice if it was in the proper reading order, but Marvel going to be Marvel. So that was a pretty fun haul. It definitely wasn't as large as the combined June and July haul, but a lot of cool stuff. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe notification bell so you don't miss out on future comic videos. I just noticed. Marvel, why? Why is the red bigger here? Like, every Marvel Omnibus has like the same size banner at the top, even if the book's shorter. Why is it like that? Anyways, sorry, got distracted. If you enjoy this type of video and these distractions, hit the like button, hit subscribe notification bell so you don't miss out on future comic book videos, and also go check out the other comic videos on the channel. Plenty of good stuff for you, and other types of videos as well. If you want to continue the conversation, join our Discord server. We have a whole channel for comics as well as other things, so come hang out. Also, you can get perks like early access to videos by signing up as a channel member. So let's give some special shout outs to our channel members. Special shout out to our channel member Captain Tiers, Spin-54, Masterben95, Forever1000, Super Shaddix Boom, Mr. Smelly Potato, Kaiju1954, Rivers, Cameron Meter, Overconception Reviews, Adam Maggle, Kyle Birdwell, Crestfallen Thoughts at Midnight, Boinkbot, Vangel Giorgio, Muhammad Faiz Daniel, Dr. Grid, Onio Nichan, David Johnson, K Slim, and Starwho. Thank you all for your support of this channel. If you so wish, I'm on social media at Blue Sky and Letterboxd at Soundout12. You can also find my wonderful graphic designer on social media and Discord at DarkClaw643. And you can find Hero Club at hero-club.com for comic reviews, interviews, and more. And until next time, this is Soundout saying, see you in the next haul.